What you're seeing here is a video I put up on Instagram. It's showing me prepping and pouring a project that I started 9 months ago, and for whatever reason I set it off to one side and didn't think about it since. And here's what it looks like today. So it's time to dust it off and get to work and see what we can make of this project. I'm going to start by removing some of the excess material, and to do that I'm going to use a carving disc and an angle grinder. The disc itself is kind of like a cheese grater, only extremely deadly. So yeah, safety first. One of the key elements of this project is the use of Mallee burls. Now, they are growths that grow on the side of a particular type of eucalyptus tree that we get here in Australia. And they have such an unusual grain pattern and some really lovely colors. You can get reds and browns and golden colors. One of the main things I like about Mallee burls is the spiky exterior, which when they are removed from the tree, it produces a really interesting natural edge, which I like to keep when I use this in other projects. My approach here was to pre-turn that centerpiece, which is a piece of mahogany, in the hopes that it would remain fairly square once I remounted it back on the lathe. Unfortunately, it isn't as square, and I have to remove a bunch of material because of that. I think for next time what I would do is put the whole project in my router sled and just resurface that top section and get it as square as I can before remounting. I had to go very slow here removing the baseboard of the mold, which for some reason I selected plywood. Next time, definitely MDF will be the way to go. So yeah, this is 16 times speed, so I'm going really slowly. It's chewing through my tool. I have to stop and sharpen often, but we get there. This is the first project video I've done for YouTube. I'm working on some more, so if you're interested to see more of my stuff, feel free to subscribe. It's about this point where I do some real damage and just dig right into that resin, and it shatters and throws shards of resin everywhere. I'm going a little bit too aggressively, need to slow things down, and yeah, I'm going to have to clean up my mess. Still a bit of a ways to go to get these chips removed. It was my intention to kind of cut down deeper than this anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal, but it's preferable not to shatter the resin, obviously. I've switched out to my scraper here. All of my scrapers have a negative rake, so that's where the edge has got a little bit of a relief edge cut into it. It's really good at handling projects where there's a bit of vibration, and I was getting quite a lot of vibration out of this. I guess it's due to the size, so that probably is a factor for chewing out the resin as I did. But yeah, from here on out, it's even slower and steadier, just using the scrapers and getting the final shape established. So cleaning up the edge, I needed to switch over to a different tool rest. Now this tool rest here is a high-tech piece of equipment. It has been made by crudely welding two pieces of rusty steel together. And I think you'll agree, it's pretty impressive. And I may even go into business making these. Okay, so now it's time to start working on the bowl, which is the center of the piece. That piece of mahogany that I mentioned earlier. You'll notice that as I start to cut this out, this mahogany is so old. It was donated by a good friend of mine. It could have been sitting there for 20, 30 years. I have no idea. But the shavings that come off this thing is basically dust. So it's probably got, I don't know, maybe 2% moisture. I have no idea, but it's very dry, as you can see. So this mahogany came to me with quite a large void in the center. I guess it has experienced a bit of rot. So I filled that void with black resin, and the resin seems to have cracked. I think that's probably some type of thermal crack. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but this is something that I'll just have to manage as the project goes on. To address the thermal crack in the resin, I got some 5-minute quickset epoxy and mixed that up with a little bit of gold dust and squirted that down into the cracks. The great thing about using this type of epoxy is it's quite thick. It obviously sets very quickly as well, so you can kind of keep it where it needs to be while it's setting, as opposed to the stuff that takes half an hour or more to set. You may be wondering why I'm using such a small sanding disc on such a large project, and I think at about the 5 hour mark it kind of occurred to me that I probably should invest in some larger sanding discs. So this is just a little 2-inch sanding disc. I think I'll go out and order some 4-inch ones definitely. So what you're about to see is me get into an altercation with the Can Rubio. Now, I've seen these things before. It's a ring pull. You stick your finger in and you pull it. Now I pulled this, I took this off camera and I pulled it, and as you'll see, I pulled it so hard the ring was about to break. Something's supposed to break, but it's not the ring, it's the seal. If I'm doing this wrong, feel free to let me know. Anyway, I ended up sticking a cutting knife down in there to get into it. It felt totally safe. It was really cool. And we move on. So I had a few options when it comes to taking this off the lathe, and I wasn't really too sure how I was going to go about it. I could have used jam chuck. I have got a Longworth chuck as well, which I could have used. I ended up going with a safe option just purely because I've got so many hours in this project. I've got quite a lot of money into it as well. So I ended up doing something a little bit unorthodox. That thermal crack in the resin was actually far worse on the underside as opposed to the inside of the bowl, which if you're going to choose which side you want the worst one on, it would be the back. So that was fine. I ended up just getting a bunch of sawdust and mixing it with some PVA glue and then just getting it down in there. I also had some holes left there from the faceplate. I don't know why, but I drilled them way too deep. So I ended up just filling them as well. And once the finish goes on, I mean, you can see them, but they're pretty well hidden, so I'm okay with that. the mahogany base gets completely transformed by the Rubio monocoat. So to achieve the finish I wanted for this project, I moved on to using an abrasive paste. This is the brand that's available at my local. Some of the other ones you may have seen online, Axe Paste and Yorkshire Grit, they basically do the same thing. I hope you enjoyed this build video. Subscribe to catch my next projects, and I welcome your comments and questions.